of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here is Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Let me say Happy New Year, and good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, but certainly never a good night, and never, ever goodbye, because I hated goodbyes from childhood trauma. My name is Reverend Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I'm the pastor of New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and we're located at 8916 South Main Street, and we worship in the building with our sister church, the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, which has been nice enough to embrace us and welcome us in. And they always say when the Baptists and the Methodists, and the Charismatics get together, there's always going to be a shouting in the camp. And so we have a good time, and we invite you to worship with us and join us whenever you're in the area. Okay, 8916 South Main Street. Very good, very good. Now, the offering which you are viewing is entitled It's Time. And you may well ask, what is it time for? And of course, it is always time for social justice. And that is why we present this offering as a tribute to those who have fought so hard and so long, and sometimes the teachers and the professors might have it seemed like a hopeless task, and so this offering is a shout out to every school teacher, every professor who has ever addressed a Black history class. Have tried to teach Black history. Have tried to teach history, period. Because, as you know, it can be a very ennui, monotonous, or boring topic to most of our children. But it serves a great purpose because of our history. If we don't know our history, as many of our historians have told us, we're doomed to repeat it. And truly, we don't want to repeat some of the history of America because it was a very hard lesson, a bloody lesson, and a very bitter and embittering experiences. Nobody should have to go and through what the Native Americans, the first colony, first people went through when Mr. Winthrop, the so-called Christian, and the Cotton Mathers, the so-called Christians, missionaries, who stole the land and actually butchered and slaughtered and tried to, in many cases, and did in many cases, exterminate the Native American that they encountered. One shudders when one thinks of the Creek nations that did not succumb or did not acquiesce or surrender to Andrew Jackson, and how they were slaughtered, and the trail of tears, the trail of sorrow, where they were just uprooted from their land and forced marched, and a lot of them perished in that land journey. And the Africans who were brought here against their will, the Middle Passage, if you will, that suffered. We don't want to repeat that history. And so history can teach us if we pay attention to the lesson. And with that in mind, the filibuster, and I want you to listen to me, that filibuster has killed every anti-lynching bill, and it has been the incinerator of every advantageous bill that would have led to the uplift of the American Negro coming out of the slavery. If they owe us reparations from slavery, yes, but they definitely owe us reparations following the end of Reconstruction, when they began to pass the black codes and really try to reinsert or reinvent slavery by another name, and as Mrs. Alexander called it, the New Jim Crow, which was little more than turning us over as prisoners to the plantation owners following the end of the Civil War. The barons of industry were complicit, and of course cheap labor is the name of the game. Even in today, they drive the cost of labor down. They try to keep the wages of the laboring masses down, where you have to go to work every day. And these things contribute to the growing economic disparity between the wealth of the Bill Gates of the world, Elon Musk, the Warren Buffetts, and the Nathaniel Martins, so to speak. So you can see, even during this pandemic, the report is out that from the Public Policy Institute, how these already billionaires have added just trillions of dollars to their stock portfolio and added to their wealth at the same time that the 99% of us are wage suppressed, wealth suppressed. A lot of us don't have 10 cents to rub together. The money runs through our fingers because we got to pay the rent, and we got to buy food, and we got to buy pay car insurance, and pay the car note, and pay for the upkeep of the family. And so it is said that since the pandemic started, it now costs the poor working class people $3,000 more per year. Now they're buying the same or a less amount of the commodity, or the goods or the services, but they're paying $3,000 more for it, based upon the fluctuating and the rising cost of inflation. And when Senator Joe Manchin and Senator Sinema tried to tell us that there is no poll tax, and yet people have had to spend 10 hours in line just to vote. If you spend 10 hours in line just to vote, how you going to be on your job that day? You got to take off, in other words, a whole day in order to cast your ballot, because of the way that the laws have been restructured and passed, and the policy has been endorsed in states like Georgia, Texas, and Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota, and just a whole host of 19 states that have added since Shelby v. Holder, and since Citizens United, thanks John Roberts Court and Clarence Thomas Court, and now they don't have to have you pay poll tax, because you got to pay a poll tax and beyond in some states just to vote. And this is predominantly in the where the black majorities or the poor minorities are located. They disenfranchise you for that day, and there's no voting on the weekends. You can't vote on Sundays. No Saturday vote. So when Senator Manchin says that he is pro Martin Luther King, well, where is the pudding? I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right? The proof is in the eating. Where's the evidence that he supports the I Have a Dream speech? They don't support that. That's just lip service that they pay on King Day, so they can march and look good and quote his speeches. But they, in essence and in practice, while they spit in his face, they urinate on his grave afresh. Yes, literally, because of their policies and their practices are antithetical to anything Dr. King believed in. Oh yes, they may dress it up with certain niceties of complexity, but when you began to unpack what Senator Sinema is about, and you unpack what Joe Manchin is about, they ain't about nothing. They're about the same Jim Crow era policies that that America has always espoused when it came to the uplift of the poor, and especially the blacks. And so that is where it is. And when they talk about, oh, it's tearing the country apart, well, who separated the country? You know, was it not the conservatives? Was it not the barons of industry? Was it not the plantation owners? Was it not the Dixiecrats and the Blue Dogs, as they call themselves? Well, we've always been a separate, balkanized nation, and that hasn't changed. Let me read my Deuteronomy, because I'm getting upset. And before I read Deuteronomy, I want to reiterate the description of Paul in Ephesians the 6th chapter, verses 11 and 12, when he says, stand therefore, put on therefore the whole armor of God. Then in verse 12, he describes the society of his day, which that society have not improved, have not changed. For he said, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. That was his apt description, and it's a description that is graphically more apparent today than even in Paul's day. So then, when we couple that with Deuteronomy chapter 15, picking up the reading at verse 12, which says that if thy brother, an Hebrew man or an Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee, and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him or her go out free from thee. And this is the kicker, and when thou sendest them out free from thee, thou shalt not let them go away empty. Thou shalt thoroughly furnish them out of thy flock, and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress. Of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give, not loan, not lease, not rent, give unto them. And so if we got the Goldman Sachs and the banks of America and the Citicorps and the City Groups and all of the other Elon Musk empires to share a portion of that wealth, why we would be into the day that Martin Luther King spoke of when he said we had to have a massive reinvestment in the people of this nation so that everybody could have a living wage. He didn't use the term living wage, but he said you would have to have an economic floor and a revolution of values is what he coined, a major revolution of values, because the way that America is headed, and it was headed that way before King was born, and it was sure headed that way before he died. Remember, the theme of the March on Washington was jobs and justice, and the theme in Dr. Sharpton's march in 2019 was jobs and justice. You know, so we're still what Farrakhan said, looking for jobs and justice. And the jobs is going away, and the justice is diminishing when it comes to the disparity between the charges leveled against a person if they are black, and the charges leveled against a person if they are white. For example, if a Black Panther had left from his home and came down to Kenosha, Wisconsin, and like Kyle Rittenhouse did, even though he was 17, and with an AR-15, and had killed one white person, why his butt would have been up the creek without the paddle. But in the American apartheid system of justice, Kyle Rittenhouse gets declared not guilty. He killed 2 people and he wounded a 3rd, and he walked away smelling like roses. Going to be running for president one day. You watch and see if he don't. He's going to be running for political office, just like George Zimmerman. All right, stand your ground. What did he do? Why, he stalked and overtook and assaulted and battered and ultimately killed Trayvon Martin, a little kid. Because he said these guys always get away with it. Well, the kid was just going to his daddy's house. He had Skittles in his hand and some juice. He didn't have no gun. He didn't pose no threat to George Zimmerman, but the settler colonialism declared him, George Zimmerman, not guilty of the murder of Trayvon Martin. They found him not guilty. Hey, what can you do? So that is the disparity against that is a disparity in the equity of justice and the dispensation of justice, or in this administration of justice in this settler colonialism. And that's even though Kim Potter got convicted, and that's even though the McMichaels got convicted. So what? Is that a release? That is what justice should look like in every case. But no, without people marching in the streets, without demonstrations, and without rioting, and with threats to the good order, why we wouldn't have gotten those convictions. It is absurd. Look at the people who are plotting an insurrection, who suborned treason on January 6th, 1 year ago, 2020. 2020. And yet, look at how they have been coddled, how they have been pandered to. Why, it is no secret that the Justice Department up there in Washington, D.C. had introduced new laws for the Black Lives Matter crowd that was protesting and marching and demonstrating. Why, they could not get within a mile of the White House. Why, there were phalanxes of militarized, Gestapo-clad, helmeted, and 4 deep on every step. Say, you come up in here, we're going to blast you. And the law was changed so that the minimum for protesting, for assembly, to protest against the United States government was 14 years minimum. And but yet look at the sentences, the light sentences that have been handed down, the ones that have been handed down for those that suborn perjury. For suborn treason. Yeah, they suborn perjury because they lied, and but they are because the color of their skin, because of their how they look, how their optics are. The sympathizers in the D.C. police force, the Capitol police force, in the FBI itself, and in the CIA. And even in the presidency. Don't forget, the greatest instigator of the January 6th attack was the President of the United States, Donald Trump. And when the people, when the authorities say, well, if you recognize anybody, let us know. There he is, Donald Trump. There he is, Matt Gaetz. There he is, Jim Jordan. There she is, Marjorie Taylor Greene. What do you mean you got to let these people go home, and then you let them leave the city with all of those weapons and all of that cache of weapons that they're now discovering? Hey, this isn't justice. This is a criminal enterprise is what it is. It isn't equity, it isn't equality. And so you can see where a righteous person would cry out against this outrageous duality of the criminal justice system. Okay, now you're going to get a tap on the wrist. But you're going to get 14 years minimum. You're going to lose your job. You ain't going to be able to get no job. You're going to lose your house. You're going to lose your car. You're going to lose everything because once they get you in the criminal justice system, they don't let you go. You're not going to be able to be hired again, you know. But they let these January 6th insurrectionists off with a tap on the wrist, slap on the wrist, so they can continue to work. They can continue to draw their paycheck. And remind you, a lot of these people were law enforcement. A lot of these people had upstanding jobs. They weren't vagabonds, you know. No. They weren't homeless and helpless. And so these things, all right, are a stench in the nostrils of God. Yeah, it's a stench in the nostrils of God. And whether we can take it to heart or not, or realize it or not, well, we are in danger of losing our democracy because the thugs are in charge. The thugs are in charge. You looking at me, you saying I'm a thug? No, the thugs have got suits on and got ties on, and they're in the Congress of the United States, and they're on the police forces of our various municipalities. And they're sympathizers. Not all, but so many that it makes us all look bad. Canada is beginning to say, well, the United States may descend into a civil war, a revolution. So we need to find some other partners other than the United States. That's what the world situation is coming to. As I come down to my close, my brothers and my sisters, those of you that are laboring or blessed to be still in the labor force, young enough and able enough, God bless you. And we thank you for your labor. And please, believe me, get your money, honey. Don't let them tell you that how much they value your service, and it ain't in the paycheck, because that paycheck is what you cash in order to pay your rent, in order to buy groceries, in order to afford health care. You make them pay you your money. And honey, if they don't want to pay you, take it from Dr. Martin. In 2022, I still say, if you're working for a person on a job and they don't want to pay you, stop working for them. God bless you, Doc.
Yes, they do.